month. There you go. January is School Board Appreciation Month. It's our honor not only to recognize individuals like yourself, Mr. Redfoot, who have measured their service in decades, but also our 5 newbies who have measured their service in days. So we have a nice mix on this board, but we appreciate the opportunity to give you recognition for this volunteer service. You're certainly not doing it for the money. So thank you. And we took a nice little picture on our Prime Promise wall, and we splurged and have a certificate for you at your desk. But other than that, that's it.
Okay, well, thank you. Item B is the financial audit. You have the floor.
I just stay right here. Then I'll stand up in the middle. My name is Bruce Morton. I'm an audit partner with McGill Tower Bell and Associates. I'm going to present the audit to you guys. So this is the audit itself. It's a pretty thick document. It's actually kind of double-sided. It's about close to 80 pages to print it off. So one of the things I like to do is, obviously 5 of you are a couple of years familiar, 5 of you are new, so you've probably never seen this before, at least not for me. But what I do is I have a summary form that I go over, kind of I call it the ESPN highlights of the audit. This is the main stuff you want to take away from the audit. There's no way I can condense all this into just 2 or 3 pages, but this is just something more of a presentation tool. We also use it internally. It's kind of when we wrap up the audit, we do a final analytic audit, make sure everything makes sense. It's kind of like everything makes sense. So I'm going to go through this with you. I don't really plan on going into this at all, unless for some reason you have an in-depth question that I need to look at. And I assume all of you do have a copy of.
Mm-hmm.
So do you guys have a copy of the audit as well? And they've probably read all the stuff through it.
Memorized.
Memorized all the footnotes. So without further ado, I'm going to get started. Let's start with this page, the top page right here. This is the audit results summary. Probably first and foremost, the auditor's opinion. So we're paid to come in and perform an audit of the financial statements at 6/30/23, and we issued an unmodified audit opinion. That's a clean audit opinion, which is the highest level of assurance that we can get on a set of financial statements. Material weaknesses. So a material weakness is something that would be deemed that needs to be reported to the board as something in the internal controls that needs to be addressed because there's a potential problem down the road. And we do not note any material weaknesses. Other comments, we have no other comments. Other than you guys do a great job. Significant estimates. So whenever you have a set of financial statements, you have estimated numbers. That's just going to be part of the whole process. The most significant estimates for Lowell School District and most schools, to be honest with you, is the collectability of earned income taxes receivable, the lives of fixed assets. So on the government-wide statements, as we'll see in a little bit, fixed assets are put on the balance sheet depreciated, and those lives are an estimate. Doesn't mean if you have a car, a vehicle, for 5 years, it means it's going to last exactly 5 years. You can estimate how long it's economic useful life to be. Then we also have the pension and OPEB liability that we talked about shortly as well. Sensitive disclosures. By sensitive, I mean these are significant disclosures that kind of really have to do a lot with estimates. One's the pension plan, note I and note J is the other person's plan benefit. We will talk about this later. Significant difficulty in performing the audit, none. We didn't have any difficulties. Had we had any difficulties, we would probably talk to you before now. Disagreements with management, none. We tried to ask somebody to wish them we could have a disagreement. Management representation, we'll give you guys a management representative. I think Jordan sent that to you. Okay. Corrected misstatements. So as part of our audit, we do make adjusting journal. We recommend journal entries, and then they post them. We will give you a copy of the journal entries. You already got it. I did. Jordan's always like uncorrected misstatements or there were no uncorrected misstatements. That means we didn't find anything like, oh, this is a problem. This number's off. And we didn't have any issues where you guys didn't want to change it. So no uncorrected. We didn't have many misstatements in that was just a joke. So that's the summary. I'm gonna get into the numbers a little bit on the next page. Again, these are just the highlights. So, this one right here. I don't know if you have it together, but yeah. Sure. If I lose anybody, please just stop me. So this is an interesting page because it's right at the perfect font why don't I think my reading class? So I'm gonna put my reading class in. It's that fine line. So I already talked about page one. So let me actually go to this first. The first column is the report page. So in here, this is the page you would find this information on. There's an item I'm going to discuss, some comments, 23's numbers, 22's numbers, and the change between the two. The other nice thing about this is comparative. This is just a single year. So page one, I already talked about the audit report. That's really the most important thing. It's a clean audit opinion. It's unmodified. It's the highest level of assurance that we can get. Getting into the numbers, the general fund, which is the most significant fund, is probably the most important. Excuse me, got a little bit of cough here. On page 13, we're going to talk about the general fund balance sheet. Now, this is a snapshot of your financial position at year end 23 compared to 22. You can see where you're at comparing both year ends. Total assets were $10,238,000 at year end. That's an increase of about $126,000 from the prior year. And the reason for the change was an increase in accounts receivable. More tuition was owed from other districts that send students here. There was a decrease in interfund balance at the cafeteria. At one point, there was a fairly large interfund balance in the cafeteria, the general fund, but that actually was paid down significantly. And also, cash and investments increased by a total of $134,000 from the prior year. Total liabilities were $2.5 million. That's up about $107,000. And the most significant item there is there was an increase in the terminal liability estimate. That's basically an increase in claims that are made at year end. That's going to vary from year to year. They're just significantly more at the end of 23 than it was at the end of 22. The other reason for the change was the approved payroll, and that's the timing of when payroll occurs and when it's occurs. So those guys make it that. Deferred inflows of resources. This is basically delinquent taxes. So it's kind of a unique accounting treatment. It's included in assets above that's backed off because these are items that would not be expected or collected within 60 days after year end. And that number is $186,000. That's down $31,000. That's good. You want that number to decrease. That's down $31,000. Fund balance. So if you take under the old accounting formula, assets minus liabilities equal fund balance or equity. The equity is $7,596,000. That's an increase of $49,170 from the prior year. The general fund balance consists of different buckets. So the way this works is there are different categories that fund balance can fall in. The first one is non-spendable. That's just under $3,000. It says prepaid expenses in the comment section. That's basically fund balance that's sitting in some sort of prepaid expense or inventory. It's just something that's already an asset, but it's already been paid out, if that makes any sense. That's not a very significant number. Then we go to assigned. So what I mean by assigned is, that means at some point the board is elected to assign fund balance for particular reasons to be set aside. So it can't just be used for anything. For it to be moved, it has to be an action of the board to unassign it. So there's actually a few different things that make that up, just giving the total of $7.4 million, but mainly that's set aside for capital projects, future retirement, and OPEB in next year's budget. So capital projects, when you think of from this standpoint, the capital project, like you guys recently did your review, right? So by having money set aside in fund balance, that would stop you from hoping you have to go and borrow to do that. You're spending some money on a regular basis, just like your own personal home. You I'm going to set aside money to buy a car or to improve my home.
Before we move on,
Yeah.
for our new people, please give an explanation of the acronym OPEB.
Yes, other employee benefits. So post-retirement benefits. So future retirement, OPEB, future benefits, these are future liabilities. They're big. You're going to see when we get to them. And it's kind of the first time you see them, your eyes pop out of your head. But what these are liabilities you're going to be paying over the course of many, many, many years. These aren't liabilities that are due as of right now today. They're liabilities that will be paid over the course of employees and retirees' lifetime, if that makes sense. So we'll talk a little more about that when we get into the number. But it's important to set aside money for that because it is a future expenditure you're gonna have. And with the retirement, your retirement is handled by the state. So technically, the money, you guys pay money out on a regular basis, the state has that money, they're supposed to distribute to your retirees. The reason that the retirement, the pension's on here is because if the state system were to collapse, each school would be responsible for their share of that liability. So technically, I mean, you're paying each, that's why your budget is so high, because that's a big liability. So you're paying money on a regular basis, they're to distribute, they're basically managing the money for you. But from a theoretical standpoint, the GASB decided, well, technically, it's your liability, although it's unlikely you'll actually have to pay.
Does this include hospitalization too for?
Yeah,
Okay.
yes, yep, that does. Yeah. So, again, and also there's some money set aside for next year's budget.
That's our next negotiation.
So if you're gonna have a budget shortfall, maybe you can pull money from that for the next year's budget. So that's just the $7.4 million. When that's been set aside or assigned. It'd be like no different if you had a savings account and you set it aside for certain reasons. The unassigned is $195,000. That's basically the rest. That's just anything that it kind of drops to the bottom. So that makes up our total balance of $7.6 million. Does that make sense to anybody? If I didn't explain it well, if you think about it later, you always feel free to reach out and ask me questions at a later date.
You'll actually receive a motion later in the agenda for those assignments. That has to do that every year at the same time.
Every year you have to try to read it. If you were to not do that, you'd have to make a motion. I'm fine, if you will. So that's the balance sheet. The revenues and expenses, which are, and that's all found on page 13 of the audit. Page 15, we get into the revenues and expenses of the general fund. So total general fund revenues were $19,994,000. That's an increase of $478,000 from the prior year. So again, just using the word buckets, we have different buckets, sources of revenue. We have local sources with $6.5 million. That's up about $520,000. The big items there, you can see some of my comments. There was a 2.4% increase in tax revenue per year. Also, in the prior year, you guys do have an OPEB trust that you guys, an investment that you guys hold to pay for those expenses in the future. In the prior year, because the market was down, you had a loss on that account. In 23, you got a good, the market's better at the end of 23. So that's something you really can't control for the market driven. And then also there was an increase in interest income because interest rates are up because of inflation. We've seen interest rates for both savings and for debt. So that's the main reason for those increases in the local sources. The state sources increased about 2%. It went from about $12.2 million to $12.4, $228,000 increase. That's mainly due to the basic ed and property tax relief subsidies. Typically, the state subsidies do go up a little bit each year. Federal sources was $1,017,000. That's down about $269,000 from the prior year. So the federal sources are going to usually vary a little bit more depending on different grants that you guys get. The big thing that we've been dealing with the last 3 years, of course, with COVID, is the ESSER money. All the money you got got from COVID relief. And the reason it's down is because you spent more of that money in 22 and less in 23. So if you were to look at 3 years, 21 was the first year of it, and then 22 went up significantly, then 23 down a little bit more. So it's still a significant number. We'll talk about that shortly as part of the single audit, but that's your federal source.
The ESSER money, is that done now? or-
No.
No.
Okay.
So our last major project will be the library, but all these other categories, Jen and I have spoken repeatedly, we want to try to keep it clean and have all of our ESSER monies expensed by 6/30 of 2024. We have to have them by 9/30 of 24, but we don't want it to roll into another fiscal year. Jen, any further comment on that?
You know, nice little breakout of the ESSER behind you on the water to do your job.
Yep.
And yeah, the ESSER money, really, there's different buckets of it. And it's been an interesting, I won't go into all that, but it's been an interesting time with dealing with the COVID relief money. So, a lot of new and crazy audit requirements we've had to deal with. And usually, of course, they all came out after the money was issued, so it caused delays in auditing and stuff like that. But I think we're kind of all caught up with it. The total budgeted revenues were $19,342,000. You guys are actually significantly over budget, over what you budgeted for revenues. That's a good thing. General fund expenditures were $19,945,000. That's now about $281,508. In the prior year, you guys had more capital projects, and you have less capital projects, like the roof. The roof was a big project. So you have less capital projects in 23, so you set that up. Overall, most expenses were pretty much the same. I think health insurance was probably up a bit. I think wages were actually down slightly due to some retirees and not quite getting everybody replaced, but overall expenses were really consistent. The capital was the same height. Total budget expenditures were $20 million. So as I said earlier, your surplus revenues over expenditures was $49,000 for the year. You actually budgeted a decrease of $661,000. So you did quite a bit better than budget. So there's several reasons for that. And actually, there's a schedule that compares more accurately the line item actual to budget. But some of it has to do just with the timing of the extra money when you got that. When you got what you got, when you spent it. And also things like the property taxes going up and then interest income going up. You don't really necessarily budget for that. You have to do gain on the investment account. So a lot of things roll into that. Some of your expenditure categories are still going up. And if it all worked out really well, you have a positive year. Any questions on the general fund?
No, but I think it's important because past boards have asked for a degree of accuracy. And how do you go from a $660,000 projected deficit to $50,000 surplus? If we boil it down to two numbers, we had $478,000 more in revenue, and we had $281,000 less in expenditures. You know, there's a $600,000 gap right there, if you will. So, and it also goes to Jen relative to we always want to project conservative estimates on our revenues, and we want to project aggressive numbers on our expenditures.
So when we did the budget last year, we were looking at taking a certain amount out of the fund balance. We took $281,000 less than we thought we were.
So what we were going for this budget for June of 23, we had said when you passed the budget, we were going to pull $660,000 from the fund balance. In actuality, we're adding about $50,000.
You added $49,072. You didn't pull anything out.
Okay.
We live another day.
Well, that's
But
good.
you never know. You have those years, so it's good to have that fund balance reserve when you do, especially if you do a big project. So.
We'll have to tell Jeff that, yes. We would be fighting every day.
So that's basically the general fund, probably the most important fund we'll talk about. If you want to turn the page, we'll get into capital projects. Capital projects is another fund, money that you guys have transferred from the general fund to the capital project fund. Once money's transferred there, it kind of has to stay there and be spent. There's about $43,000 sitting in cash at the end of the year. There's about $41,500 at the end of the prior year. The difference is interest income. Really wasn't much going on in that fund. No liability here. The proprietary fund of food service, this is the one that has been kind of the wackiest one, I think, since included, because a lot of it has to do with the school-wide free meals, lunches, and breakfasts. That kind of, you got an increase in the subsidy. So that kind of went away the year that we're going to look at. So if you look at the net income, it was a negative almost $10,000. The prior year was a surplus of $155,000. So it's kind of weird because we don't see small negative numbers out of the schools. We got a school district, but a lot of them usually have cafeterias, usually maybe a little surplus. And then we had a couple years before COVID, we had these huge increases because of all the subsidy money coming in. So that's kind of backed off now. We did notice, a lot more of the a la carte sales. Students are buying the a la carte sales. Included in that number is $18,000 of depreciation, which is a non-cash expense. So if you did pull that out, you actually have a little bit of a surplus in the food service fund. Okay, so that's the fund statements. Those are the statements that are easier to understand. That's how governments use fund accounts, there's that term fund account. Many, many years ago, the Governmental Accounting Standards Board decided we need to make this a lot more confusing, so we're going to add another set of financial statements within these financial statements. It's called the government-wide statement. So that's where we take your modified cash financial statements and turn them into full quote, just like a for-profit or not-for-profit entity. So with that, we take fixed assets, and on the fund statements, you buy a fixed asset, when you do your roof project, that shows the expenditure easier to do it. On the government-wide statements, we put that on the balance sheet and depreciate over the estimated life. When you buy a vehicle, same thing, any capital asset. So it's treated much differently. It's just a whole different way of treating it when you're doing the accounting for it. The other big item is debt. So debt payments in general, like you make a $100,000 debt payment with principal and interest on the fund statement, that's an expenditure. On the government-wide statements, only the interest portion is an expenditure. The rest goes to the balance sheet to reduce the debt that's already been reported. So if we take, there's a couple other things too we'll talk about when we get to that. So if we look at the amount invested in capital assets, you can see there's land improvements, buildings and improvements, furniture, equipment, and vehicles. You have about $14.6 million net of depreciation invested in capital assets. That's a decrease of $595,000. What makes that up? You guys did have some leases of $107,000. There's purchase of 2 buses for $193,000, and then there's depreciation expense of $893,000. So basically, depreciation for the year was greater than your additions for the year, so you had a negative $595,000 in your capital assets. Kind of important to remember too, that does not mean fair market value. So your building is in your cost. It's not necessarily the value of that building. Okay, so we keep that in mind as well. It's not fair market value account. The next item we'll talk about is the bonds payable, which is found at footnote F on page 11. There's also a footnote on page 35 and 36, and that balance is $5.2 million. If you're it's a decrease of $1.1 million. No new debt this year. You guys have an amortization schedule. You just make debt payments. Basically, business as usual. Debt decrease, just like it would on your mortgage each year. So no change there. The OPEB, the other post-employment benefits, which kind of briefly touched on earlier. And I told you these are going to be big numbers, so they're just under $5 million. Actually, a little bit better than retirees, about $5.4 million. So that's a future liability for retirees, for post-employment benefits that you're going to have to pay out ratably, but you can't really, it's kind of an actuarially determined number. So,
How many years do they go out to get that number?
I'm not really sure. It is all sort of,
Formula, yeah.
oh, yeah. We get a report that we audit, so all we audit is the number, the information that goes into that report. Same with the pension. That's something that's determined and audited by the actuary. They get audited themselves. So that we rely on that information. We do that. So we make sure that liability is adjusted to the out based on what they told us. The other thing about that liability in the pension, it's always a year behind. So this is actually that the pension number actually the year-end 22 numbers. There's always going to be a 1-year lag time. It's driven by your retirees, how old they are, who passes away, who doesn't, the market itself, also stock market. So there's a lot of things that go into that. The next item down, I already mentioned, was the pension liability. That's $25,653,000. So again, you don't have to come up with that money today, or you'd be in trouble. So, but that's something that is actually at the state. They're responsible to pay that out. But again, as I said earlier, something would have happened, then each school would be responsible. That's a big liability. But if you look at a school from like Pittsburgh or Philadelphia, you got to add some digits onto it.
But again, I don't want to call it a fictitious
It is.
number.
It's theoretical.
It's a theoretical number. Thank you.
Okay,
Because
that was my question, Lenny. Thank you. That's just our risk associated with if the state should collapse, so to speak.
right. So if the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania goes under, assuming the Laurel School District survives that collapse, we're going to be on the hook for $25 million. I venture to say if the Commonwealth goes under, we have bigger problems anyway than the $25 million. But that's a theoretical number, Phil.
Yeah, that's risk exposure.
Like a World War or something. I don't know what happened, but-
Nuclear holocaust,
Yeah, the whole economy.
zombie apocalypse.
Yeah, exactly. Stuff you see in the movies.
Okay.
So take that number. Here's my takeaway for that number. Here's the important thing. That's why you pay so much each year on your retirement. And that's why that rate, I remember 20 years ago, it used to be a fraction of what it is now. It just keeps going up and up because.
Used to be 6-8%,
I kind of remember that, yeah. That was up.
and that was an increase from 2.5%,
Yeah. What is it now?
34 point something.
And that's why you look at this number when you're negotiating contracts,
Right.
Yeah.
because,
Yeah.
yeah.
It's theoretical. And when a few years ago, these two numbers that used to have to be on, when they said to come, I said, this is stupid, because this is gonna make schools look terribly financial. You always have a negative fund balance, basically. But I get the theory behind it, it's just not practical. But it is important, and that's why I think it. So I beat that up enough, but there's also significant footnotes regarding the numbers in here. If you can read or understand, you know the job. So there's just it's a template footnote that we copy, but it's just a lot of stuff that goes into it. Again, that's another thing, one more thing is that because of your lifetime, the market assessment, if you remember, the market at the end of 22 wasn't very good. So next year's number, I think, would be better because the market at 23 was better. So typically, you're always going to see.
Just so I'm clear, is that 30% going into a pension fund that the government's managing?
The state, yeah, the state of Pennsylvania.
PSCRS.
Peter, oh, yeah. We're responsible for it. What we do from our standpoint, just is we audit the information that goes into it, make sure it's accurate. So the number we just rely on are accurate. And those who audit. Any more questions on that? On the numbers? Okay, we're getting into a couple of things, the tax millage, which is disclosed for Ward County on page 33, 14.176, same as the prior year. The next I want to get into is the second most important, maybe it's people on page 62. So federal money. So if you guys spend, not receive, spend more than $750,000 in federal funds, you have to have a single audit. So it's additional audit work and there's additional reports that go along with that, the back of this financial statement. So 2 years ago, I don't think they've had a single audit for several years, but mainly because of the ESSER money, the COVID money, puts you over the limit. So over $750,000, so you have to have a single audit. So what we do is we have to go through a calculation of what money we have to look at, a certain percentage of it. Typically, we have to look at the ESSER money because it's the biggest bucket of your federal money. You have several buckets. There's title money, there's the money that comes into service, nutrition, but there's all that stuff. But the ESSER is what we look at, and of your $1,339,861,000 of federal money, we tested the education stabilization fund for COVID-19 money, which was $632,000. So just a little less than half of it. So the big takeaway from there on page 62, a clean opinion. So we didn't have any findings or issues with how that money was managed. And taking on page 67, the federal findings and collection costs, we didn't have any findings or collection costs. And that is actually maybe as important as I used to report. That's the stuff that you make to think with that stuff. No issues in the way that was handled. That's it. Really the end of my presentation as far as the numbers go and the financials. Again, you can't get everything from what I just went over. You don't want that. There's a lot of information in here. So if you have questions down the road, want me to further explain something, please reach out. You can go through the business office here, reach out to me. Or you can contact me directly and go follow that. Help answer any questions or concerns.
Anybody have any questions?
As always, I appreciate the 2-page summary. I think it gives them something that they can digest and give them something with confidence then that they can vote.
I used to, years ago, go through this, just do the audit for back and forth. It was such a hassle. Looking back, you're losing people's attention. I feel like this is just a lot.
It was much nicer this year, I have to say.
Oh, good.
I like the smaller, really all you have to do is tell me clean report, and I'm usually pretty good.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the important thing. You guys know your numbers anyway. So you guys do a good job. You're always spot on everything. No big surprises. Questions, comments?
No.
Enjoy doing the audit. We'll just send you everyone. All right. It's pretty smooth.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, item 3, any reports from any standing committees of the board? Any additions to any administrator supervisor reports? Glad to see Mrs. Nicole back today. Item B, any information reports? What's that? Oh, okay. Item 6, approval of the minutes from the December meeting.
I'll make a motion.
second by, Mr. Bill. Any negative votes? Any abstentions? All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Item 7, I'll have Lance do the treasurer's report and bill listings.
Okay, it's the recommendation of the superintendent of the board to approve the treasurer's report for the general fund as of December 2023, 2023, as outlined below. Balance of November 30th, 2023, $934,140.29. Receipts during December 2023, $1,958,690.64. Expenditures during December 2023, $1,932,163.77. The balance as of December 31st, 2023, $960,667.16. I'd like to put that in form of a motion.
Motion by Mr. Nemo, second by Mr. Kuth. Any discussion on the motion? Any negative votes? Any abstentions? All in favor? Aye. Motion carries. And the investment and bill.
Okay, it's the recommendation of the superintendent of the board to approve the attached investment report for December 2023. I'd also like to put that in the form of a motion.
Motion by Mr. Nemo, second by Mr. Kuth. And what's that, the next one as well?
We got to vote.
Oh, yeah, I'll have to vote on anything. Any negative votes? Any abstentions? All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Yeah, you can do A and B both.
Okay, cool. List of general, fund bills. It is a recommendation of the superintendent of the board to approve general fund bill listing for January 10th, 2023 in the amount of $31,733.77 and manual payments made in the month of December 2023 in the amount of $1,453,944.90 for a total of $1,485,678.67. I put that in the form of a motion.
Second by Sherry.
Motion by Mr. Nemo, second by Ms. Eldridge. Any negative votes? Any abstentions? All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Item B, list of food service fund bills. Recommendation of the superintendent of the board to approve the food service fund bill listing for January 10th, 2023 in the amount of $105,605.65 and manual payments made in the month of December 2023 in the amount of $40.35 for a total of $105,646. I also put that in the form of a motion.
Motion by Mr. Nemo, second by Mrs. Brest. Any negative votes? Any abstentions? All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Item 9, board action items, Mrs. Sinceri.
Now I can do A, B, C, and D together.
Correct.
All right, so, there's the recommendation of the superintendent of the board. Item A, retirements, resignations. Retirement of David Magliocca, middle high school custodian, effective June 30th, 2024. B, cafeteria position. Approve the employment of Michelle Texter to a 3.5-hour day elementary cafeteria server position effective January 11th, 2024 at the rate of $11.25 an hour. Ms. Texter has been a substitute since November 2023. And C, approve, recognize the following professional development workshop seminars for one, Mrs. Jessica Neopatesis, or PA-TPAN, for the 2024 PA Department of Education Conference, February 28th through March 1st, 2024, at the cost of the district of $175 for registration. 2, Matt Pertow to Robert Morris University for Western PA College Success Roundtable on January 30th, 24, at a cost of the district for mileage and lunch. And 3, Mr. Matt Pertow to Edinburgh University and West on April 12th, 2023, or should be 24, sorry. No, it's okay. For PASSAT Counselor Day, the cost of the district for mileage and lunch, I would like to put A through
D.
D, addition to the volunteer and non-instructional substitute listings for 2023-24. Approve the attached attached list of additions to volunteer, non-instructional substitute listings, pending receipt of expired documents clearances, which is attached.
So move.
Well, you're the second.
Oh, she put
Yeah.
She put in the form of a motion.
Apologies, second.
A, B, C, and D in the form of.
I appreciate the enthusiasm.
Uh,
We're all here.
Motion by Mr. Sari, second by Mr. Nemo. Any negative votes? Any abstentions? All in favor? There we go. Motion carries. Item 10, board action items.
Can I ask
I
a
would-
question about that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so I've looked at it a few times, so
Which stat are you looking at?
the eligibility of non-residents.
There you go. Yes.
So I see that if your employee, your child goes here free of tuition, right?
Yes.
That's what changed. What is the second part that is highlighted? What does this
Okay.
mean exactly?
Sure. So this pertains to our vocational agriculture program. As you heard, with the auditors, we do have some students, sometimes they're in a special ed program, sometimes they're in vocational agriculture. They're non-residents and they can come here, but they're here for tuition. So one of the things that we did this year through our central registration is establish a process by which to review those applications. Because we just don't want to take any kid, we don't want to take someone, a district trying to dump upon us. So we do have some students who come to the VOAG program from Shenango or whatnot. And so this part of the policy covers that process.
Okay, so they've already been coming here and paying the tuition. This is
Right.
just the process.
Right.
Okay.
On the BOAG
Mhm.
thing, do we have a policy on who's eligible? Does it have to be, can it be someone from a neighboring county that borders our district, like Slippery Rock, or do we have any kind of, is that required a formal articulation agreement, or?
No, like, let's say, for example, that, all right, I'll use your example, Slippery Rock, okay? Well, Wilmington has VOAG, Laurel has VOAG. If their school is willing to pay and we're willing to accept and transportation is on the family, then that could indeed
So
happen.
it's a two-way street. We have to accept it. Also, they have to be willing to give up their stipend, to pay the tuition.
Right,
Okay.
right. And so, you know, and if they're about 6'4", 275 and can run, jump and dunk, you know, they get extra points on their application process.
That's right. And even less of a chance that the other district's gonna sign off.
Okay, item 10, committee of the whole. Just for the new members, I will read these ones, but I'll need somebody to make a motion and second them. I can't do that. Committee of the whole, I'd like to take item A, policy adoption, second reading. Item B, policies, first reading. Item C, articulation agreement with Newcastle School of Trades. Item D, articulation agreement with Delaware Valley University. And item E, opioid settlement.
So moved.
You have a first by Mr. Nimmo and a second by Mr. Kuth.
Motion by Mr. Nimmo, second by Mr. Kuth. Is there any discussion on any of the motions? Any negative votes? Any abstentions? All in favor? I would then like to take item F, social media litigation. Or did I didn't do F, right? I
No,
skipped it.
no, you did right. F's right.
Okay. F, social media litigation. G, asset disposal. H, creation of the addition of the art club. I, district health and safety plan. And J, catalogs for the middle high school course selection.
So moved.
Who are you giving the first? Okay, again, Mr. Nimmo first, Mr. Kuth second.
Motion by Mr. Nimmo, second by Mr. Kuth. Any discussion on any of the motions? I did have one question. I was looking through the course selection guide, and I guess I was looking for, you know, the book 1984 and Animal Farm. And I I was never sure. The only time a student would have it is if they're in AP English or,
I'd have to honestly look.
okay. Well, I won't put you on the spot.
that in there, then yeah, that would be the only time.
Okay, I was just curious. I didn't know whether, I don't know where they would look at in history, but I guess with the way times are, they're two good books to read.
Well, I know
But-
the English department, goes through and they get the young literacy, suggestions. The young literacy, organization always comes out with like top 50, top 25 books for young readers, so I know they look at that periodically as well.
Okay. Any other discussion on, any of the motions? Any negative votes? Any abstentions? Motions carry. I would like to take, item K, bids for the 24-25 classroom supplies. L, general fund balance designations. And this is, what he was talking about in where we have to move these every year. Item N, the audit report for year ending June 2023. And N, field trips, student activity trips.
So moved. Second.
Motion by Mr. Kuth, second by Mr. Nemo. Any discussion on any of the motions? Any negative votes? Any abstentions? Motion carries. Is there any new business to come before the board? Any comments or questions relative to non-agenda items? Nothing online, Mr. Lee? Okay, before I adjourn, I'd like to have a short executive session for personnel.
Litigation.
Litigation, okay. With that, do I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Laurel and Lance.
Motion by Mrs. Brest, second by Mr. Nemo. Any discussion, negative votes, abstentions, all in favor?
Aye.
Motion is carried, meeting is adjourned.